Hello students and welcome to another accounting video. This is a very highly requested video, so I decided to also make this one. And this is calculations for your provisions for credit losses. And I'm going to do this just in the format of general journals, but it will help you understand better how to approach this question or this type of transaction. Normally it's just one of the additional notes that you have to do in a profit and loss account. So I'm now recording this to make sure that there are no misunderstandings, and I actually have 3 different scenarios here to show you what to do. So they ask you here that you need to complete the general journals, and they give you scenarios. And scenario number 1 provides you with a debtors control value of 56000 and then a provision for credit losses of 12,000. Again, a debtors control can also be called your accounts receivable. And then they give you a little bit more information, and they say a debtor who owes you 6,000 Rand is insolvent and the debt must be written off. Provision for credit losses is adjusted to 8% of the outstanding debtors. Alright, if I just look at this first one, how will I go about it? And I think what makes this easy is that there's actually a fixed format in which you can calculate these provisions. So what you will do is the following, and I'm just opening another Excel spreadsheet to show you, but it's as simple as this. I start with my debtors that are given to me, and in the list they give me debtors worth 56000. From this point on, I go and look at debtors that are now written off, and you will find that they tell you in scenario number 1 that the debtors written off is 6,000 Rand. So they're insolvent, written off. So typically the double entry there will be you debit the bad debts or the credit losses with 6,000 and you credit the debtors control with 6,000. So here I have then my 6,000. I'm obviously going to deduct that amount because those are debtors who will not pay. So my final total then for debtors is the difference between those two, which should be 50,000. Right, so that's my debtors. Now I want to know what the provision should be, and it's quite easy to calculate. I will simply take the 50,000 that I have now calculated and I will times it by this percentage given. And in scenario number 1 they tell you it is 8%. So I times by 8% there, and that gives me an answer of 4,000 Rand. Then I need to go and deduct what I already have. So I deduct the existing provision, and my existing provision for credit losses, if I go to scenario number 1, is 12,000. So there I am going to deduct the 12,000, and that gives me then an answer of 8,000 Rand negative. So your change in the provision and the credit loss expense is therefore a negative 8,000. Alright, so if I were to now do the general journal entry, what would I say? My credit loss expense should be lesser now. So credit loss expense is an expense account. So if I were to have now a debit and a credit side, I know that my expense is lesser on the credit side. So I'm going to say 8,000 Rand there, and I'm going to credit the credit loss because it is becoming less. Then obviously I'm going to debit the provision for credit losses because it works like a liability. So therefore, if it is lesser, it will be a debit entry. So provision for credit losses will be a debit entry of 8,000 Rand there. So in this case, it has now become lesser. So if you were to do your profit and loss statement, you would simply deduct 8,000 Rand from your credit loss expense that you already have. Right, that's scenario number 1. How about scenario number 2? In scenario number 2, again, they give you debtors control of 12,000, a provision of 22,000. They tell you a debtor owes 18,000 and is insolvent, must be written off. And again, the credit losses provision is adjusted and it must now be 5% of outstanding debtors. So how will I go about doing this calculation? And now you will see I'm kind of just repeating the format that I've now done previously. So for scenario number 2, I start with the data given. The data is given in scenario number 2, 120,000. Then I go and I deduct the written off data, and the written off data owed me an amount of, in this question, 18,000. So there I'm just going to deduct the 18,000, and that will give me my final answer. If I can ever spell this correctly. My final answer for datas of 102,000. Then what my provision should be is, of course, then the 102,000. I'm going to times it by the percentage. That is now 5%. And it tells me that my provision should in fact be 5,100. I just deduct the current provision that was given to me. The current provision is 22,000. And again, I will see if I get to the sum of those two. 5,100 minus 22,000 gives me minus 16,900. So here, my provision and my credit loss will decrease because it gives me a negative answer. So if I decrease the expense, again I'm going to say credit the credit loss with 16,900 and then debit the provision for credit loss and also 16,900 debit side, credit side. So that is what that general journal entry would look like. In your calculations for your profit and loss statement, you would simply deduct 16,900 Rand from your credit loss expense that already exists. Then the final scenario is scenario number 3. And in this scenario, you will see that the debtors control is 100,000 and the provision is 35,000. They tell you a debtor who owes 5,000 Rand is now insolvent and the debt is written off. The provision for credit losses is 10% of outstanding debtors. So in this instance, I'm going to repeat this calculation again. So I'm starting again with the debtor given. And here they've given me debtors worth 100,000. Then debtor written off. So you can literally study this layout. It works perfectly every time. Data written off was 5,000. That should leave you with what, 95,000? If my math is not too horrible. Then what the provision should be, of course, it is then the 95,000 times this percentage given of 10%. That should be 9,500 there. And we already have one, so the provision that exists, I'm going to deduct. And it seems like that is 35,000. Again, I'm going to have a negative answer. So provision, so it's not always a negative answer. All these scenarios happen to be negative. It doesn't always have to be negative. So the provision adjustment and credit loss change is then a negative of 25,500. As I said, this answer could also be positive. So if your provision should be 9,500 and the current provision is only 1,000 Rand, then obviously it will increase by 8,500 Rand. So here, 25,500. Again, I'm just going to copy this layout, and you will see that the answer is then 25,500, 25,500. So this was just a quick video, sorry for that, just a quick video on how to calculate the provisions, and what I really want you to focus on is the format of this calculation. I think it's really essential for you to do this calculation. You get marks for it. It will help you get to the right value. And as I say, if the answer is negative, you deduct it from the credit loss expense. If it is positive, you add it to the credit loss expense. So you can get any one of those, negative or positive, and it's very important not to ignore the sign. Right, so that was a quick video on provisions. Hope that it has helped you a bit. Please let me know if you need any more videos on any other topics that you might be struggling with. If not, I will definitely see you then in class. Goodbye.